All right, we made it back with the podcast live in DC, and we actually have a repeat fan favorite guest on. Jason, glad you made it here.
Thanks, Adrian. Happy to be here. So I hope I'm actually a fan favorite, but I'll do that on your way.
Repeat guest means we got you back on yet. I think what could be interesting to start from the glazing contracting perspective, how you've implemented, at least since the last time we spoke, automation, either through AI or various tools in the glazing contracting process, just given it's interesting seeing that that's where the world is heading, but trying to understand how each stakeholder in the project team implements some of that and how everyone can benefit from it.
Yeah, it's culminating right now in a world of estimating where we're probably bidding more work than ever, which sounds contradictory to a market that's slower than usual. But what's happening is you're, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, we're bidding different project types, smaller types, big types, data centers we wouldn't have touched 2 years ago. So our capacity of estimating is a constant conversation. And what we're focused on right now is how can we use AI to help us get estimates done faster? Because when you look at what an estimator is doing, there are probably 60% of the time on a big enough job and on architecturals that are big enough that you're counting windows and you're reading specs and you're trying to understand takeoffs. So we've done a lot of AI research. We do have a IT parent company that it makes us be very careful with who we use, and we have to go through a security process. So it's a very heavy lift for us to look at, okay, which we're going to want to see, go through approval. What I'm seeing is there are at least a dozen, probably 200 companies all trying to get this in place. And with AI, there's a few programs out. I'm not going to say any names out there. I'm running their research. I don't believe in one enough to really promote one yet, but everyone's close. There's a lot of programs that can do, a next set of architecturals, marked window plans. It can do a takeoff pretty quick. Some of our estimators who go, wait, are you replacing me? The good news is that the answer is no. That the AI architecturals are perfect. You have shadow lines, you have marks that don't show up, you have an architect who figures to mark something. But if you imagine the time it takes to count 20 floors of windows, and now instead of counting every window, you're just looking for what AI might have missed. You're being the filter, the human filter for it. Now, another thing we're doing, and something that I think is going to become very commonplace, it's already onboarded onto legal. A lot of lawyers have used it for years. There's a program, again, I'm not going to say the name, but it was developed for lawsuits, for lawyers to look at. It's called Document something. They're using that program now in spec driven. So they're actually saying, put all your specs, all your addendums, all your contract documents, and we as managers of the company can go and, hey, we're bidding this job today, pull up the program, it has an AI chatbot, and ask whatever you want. You can say, tell me all the window specs, tell me the glass specs, tell me this. Again, it saves time, and it saves depending on a junior estimator, you might not know what to look for in spec. So I could keep going on, but let me know what questions you have. I mean, it's robust. There's a lot of options.
Do you think architects are incentivized or motivated to develop sets and tools that will be easier for the contractors to digest and work with? Like, is there still this clash between the design and construction team in terms of, you just threw me a pile of crap and now I have to figure it out how I'm going to build it, what I do with this?
I think it'll be project dependent. I think that institutional projects, government projects where the spec is pretty safe, where they know what they draw is typically what they're going to get, I think there's a lot of motivation to do that. In the private sector, apartment buildings specifically, when architects are getting BE 90% of the time right now, they're drawing a rendering, and then really the conversation on the table is, how can we build this for the best dollar? Those I don't think you're going to see move in that direction, because the owners aren't going to pay the money for the architects to put the time in to be able to get to a AI perfection, where the drawings are so great. There's Construct Connect, which architects are using, GC's using. They have an AI software. There's one of the ones we're looking at. So there's an AI component, part of Construct Connect, that's all talking to each other. I think we have some time until it gets there. Maybe AI will figure it out for us as it continues to evolve and continues to take our feedback and say, no, you missed that, you made that. Every company's saying the same thing. We're a year away. Well, 2 years past with one company that was a year away 2 years ago. So we'll see, it'll get there. But right now, humans are needed. You have to trust the AI work, but I do believe with what we're about to start using, we'll save about 30% capacity.
Trust but verify, right?
Maybe it's going to expedite the process, but you still need that person verifying every step of the way.
I caught on a thought as I was going down there. Why do you think your comment about we're tackling more estimates than ever? Is there more activity than ever, or are there less qualified glazing contracting companies than ever?
Unfortunately, I don't think glazers are going down at all. I think there's still plenty of glazers afterward. It's two things. One, job types. So our net's broader. But the same jobs are bidding 7, 8, 9, 10 times. So the same job that you bid 3 years ago that usually you're not still bidding today, those are still in the docket. So there's new stuff coming up. And then there's this long list of hold projects that have been sitting on the sidelines for 2, 3, 4 years. And those are bidding and they just keep coming. And then there's VE lists. And so the estimating, if we were to tap our lists and try and figure out, how many of these have we been before out of all the jobs bidding in a given week, I would bet you that 70% rebid.
And a time 5, 10, 15 years ago, was the industry different that you onboarded, I don't think this is the case, but onboarded the contractor and then you worked through those changes? Or is the expectation, throw this, throw this, throw this, throw this, we want all considerations, all design options, so we can make the best informed decision?
It's always been the latter. That's always been the question, but that usually happened one time. Now it's happening 3, 4, 5 times, because even when, all right, we do all these things, we're going to get to the budget. Owner gets the budget. There's a lot of things going into the project, so no one's trying to be facetious, but there's a war in the Middle East. Oil went up, and the concrete's gone up. Data centers are killing the electricians and MEP. So, well, maybe concrete and glazing is slow on one market. You got the MEP side on fire. So all of a sudden that budget goes up. So there's a lot of factors come involved. I think I would say since COVID, it's been an increasing amount of that activity. And I think it's because of all the changes that just continue to come, month after month.
Do you think the globalization of our industry has been a gift or a curse?
I think it's curse. I'll talk specifically to glazing. I'll say I was born in Windows. That's all I know. Windows is uniquely a domestic product, more so than I think most components in construction. There's always offshore stuff, but if you look at the makeup of most of the buildings, at least I've been part of my whole career, it's all domestically made or maybe Canadian made, which is close enough. We're not bringing much over the pond. I'm seeing that change the past 5 years because people are taking bigger risks to make budgets work. I don't think it's sustainable. I think people want glass in the day. I think when your cleaner is breaking windows or when you're at your phone turnover for a $50,000 a day data center that had liquidated damages of $50K, do you want to have to wait on European glass if your lift guy runs into a piece of glass? So I think all those things lead towards domestic is the way to go for things you urgently. And I know people, myself included, who have felt some pain for making different choices the past couple of years, and I won't make those choices again.
When does that value gap flip in terms of, is it a certain size project? When you get over 75,000 square feet, all of a sudden 5%, 7% premium all of a sudden doesn't pencil out, where on a smaller project, we can eat that, it's worth the enclosure risk.
I think it's all economic driven. I would have answered you differently 2 years ago, but I would have pointed to some developers and say they will never go overseas. They won't. I know it well. He doesn't care about a 20% discount from China. He's not going to do it. That's not the case today. So when that same guy who really doesn't want to, he meant what he said, but he has a job on the shelf for 4 years, he's going to make a choice he has to make. I think that the economy we're in today is short-lived. Every 10 years we see something. We saw it in 08, and we almost had a 20-year break where we had 08 all the way up to 2022, 23. Now, hopefully we're almost done with it, but I think we're in a unique time right now.
And part of our discussion next, on a final note, with existing building retrofits, do you think that decision-making framework changes in new build versus existing buildings, given on the existing side, you're usually under a much tighter time crunch?
Definitely. Existing building, I think, is going to go domestic 95% of the time. Unless there's an offshore option that you're very confident in lead times, they have a design already in place and they're ready to roll. These guys need things put in fast. Once they're demoed, they're exposed to the elements inside of the buildings getting destroyed from there on. So they don't want to risk a 3-month delay because of an overseas war that broke out or a customs issue or whatever else could happen that we can't control.
Well, we'll continue this on stage and everyone will get that footage later on. Thanks for coming out, Jason.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Well, Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
So what we're going to dive into now, and you called it the process. I think there's this challenge, and we were looking at a clip before of this whole concept of the design intent narrative and how to properly communicate design intent to the various project stakeholders. Have you found, let's start with that, what have you found is the biggest challenge in resonating with the team?
It is a challenge, and the biggest challenge is articulating it to start with, understanding what the design intent is, understanding what the big idea is, and coming to an agreement on that and getting alignment on that with the big stakeholders, the owners or the designers or whoever, and then communicating it. And it's amazing how many conversations we have about challenges on projects, and it almost always boils down to communication. And so how do you communicate it? How do you communicate that big idea at all levels? Like through the SD phase, through the DD phase, through the CD phase, and as the team grows and grows and grows almost exponentially from the architectural team to the broader design team to the construction team to the subcontracting team, and making sure that everybody understands their piece of the pie or their piece of the puzzle and where it fits into the overall whole and how it plays up and speaks to the design graph is a hard thing to do.
Yes, and it's something we were just talking about with Jason before is if designers are incentivized or set up for success as it relates to that communication channel to the subcontractors, to the manufacturers, because a lot of times I found that when it actually gets down to that final CD level pricing, it's chaotic. We got to get them pricing in, and pricing's yesterday, and blah, blah, blah. It's well, right now we need to communicate through the construction team, have to the architect, but so much of that homework and effort can be done up front. And I would imagine what's required from the design team standpoint is to have that dialogue with vendors and manufacturers and contractors to get relevant, applicable information.
Absolutely. And oftentimes you can't do it, right? Because there are too many subcontractors, and there's not there's not the bandwidth to do that over a length of time that's needed to be done. So you need to bring on the CM of the builder, who's going to oversee the construction process and get them to understand the design intent and press upon them the importance of communicating that design intent to all the people that they bring on the project from the get-go. Like, everybody should get the first, a 5-minute spiel about the project, about this is the big idea. And if you're the drywall person, you understand how your drywall plays into the big design concept, which is what the owner bought, which is what we're all getting paid for, right? At the end of the day, the product, the vision, and how your piece plays into that.
It's so funny that everyone always goes fights the drywall guy.
So the Kowski guy, or just say he's the flasher guy, punching bag rather.
So how challenging have you found it to communicate that vision to the owner and get them to understand it?
It's challenging and different every time. There is no one way to do it. I think you need to spend just a lot of time with the owner to understand how they receive information, how they process information, and be able to deliver the big idea to them in that format. And for some folks it's visual, for some folks it's written, for some folks it's, you need to be recording it somehow, some way, so that they can see it, feel it, understand it, and then get them to almost formally agree to it. So that there's alignment from the get-go in terms of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know, in engineering school, after I've made this joke so many times, the only department that had a communications course was the civil engineering folks. For some reason, civil needs to be communicated, but mechanical and electrical isn't as important.
Yeah.
How is that integrated into architectural curriculum?
In school?
Yeah, I would think when you're presenting your design concepts, is there any of that emphasized?
Well, in school, not so much. There are particular individual courses that you take in terms of learning mechanical systems or structural systems or those kinds of things. I would say in school, I rarely got into how those really integrated into the building. And for me anyway, and I think for a lot of people, that's a learn on the job kind of a thing. And again, when you're just within the design team specifically, earlier you can get those people in, earlier they can understand the design intent, the earlier you can collaborate around how their system, whatever it is, mechanical, structural, can facilitate the design intent or help the design intent. Or, oftentimes it's a direct contrast to the design intent, and then you got to figure out how to make it work together. Like, you can build that collaboration and coordination early, and then try to see it through the rest of the project. And that can then start to trickle down.
Do you find a tapering off of, and I don't want to put a negative connotation or stigma around this, but there's so much time and effort and emphasis put on the design and achieving the design, and then once the project's bought out, it gets handed off to a different team, like the CA team, and it's I don't know, seeing the execution side of things and then actually relishing and embodying what was achieved.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where so many lessons can be learned. It's not really overlooked.
Different firms do it different ways. Sometimes they do hand it off to a construction team. Best case scenario for me is that there is some institutional firm knowledge that sees the project all the way through so that they can carry the design intent. If that's not the case, if you're handing it off, I think then again, you got to fall back on communication. That design intent has to be communicated. And you have to get the people who are going to be the boots on the ground, who are going to be the frontline people communicating with the contractors in the room when they're talking to the subcontractors, understand how all those pieces fit together, how they actually build up into what the picture wants to be.
And do you think to get that wisdom or level of expertise, you have to have the architecture firms? Almost, how certain companies or industries have they call them rotational programs or something, where you're going to spend time accounting and this and this.
Yeah.
You got to see it on site being built. You got to see it being
Absolutely. I think the best education in the world is drawing as an architect, is drawing something that you didn't quite understand and getting it wrong, or putting a stray line somewhere that then you go into the build and the line stays in the drawing set until it gets blot out, and that line gets blot out at something, and now you're the person in the field answering the question about what does this line mean? This is the way I put in this wall because you put a line there, or I did this thing because you put a line there, and I didn't mean to put that, was just CAD dust or whatever. And that is a trial by fire learning experience that I think every architect should have.
As living on the subcontractor or manufacturer side, I've seen at times an estimator or a salesperson will sit there and study a set of drawings and be like, why did they draw this? Or they drew this because they want this. And half the time it wasn't even intentional.
Right.
I think that's the biggest frustration, because sometimes you have to say, well, maybe they didn't want that or mean anything by it, or they just copy and pasted it because they don't know how to draw window wall detail, so they put a storefront section in there instead.
Yeah. And you don't know, right? You don't know. Banging. Obviously, again, optimally, there's an opportunity to ask those questions, but there are probably thousands of those questions, so you don't get a chance to ask all the ones that you want. And you're asking us to do Friday, and you got to make these decisions because I only have 12 hours to get done, and I got 16, 20 hours worth of work to do before we get there. So yeah, stuff goes in there, and hopefully you cover some contingencies, or there are other ways that you can cover some mistakes or be able to make up for some mistakes on all sides. I mean, and that's the other piece about collaborating as a team, is that we all make mistakes, right? And the best teams help each other fix their mistakes, and don't leave people hanging out on the skinny branches, like alone, trying to like fix some error that they made. But it's like, we're gonna need to get together, come together as a team. I know you screwed that up, but we're gonna all have to fix it. And when I screwed up, they're gonna expect you to be in the room to help you fix it, right? Because it's gonna happen. And architectural projects and scale and complexity that we do are infinitely difficult to construct and communicate and create. That's why I was constantly fun. Matt, thanks for coming on. I'm looking forward to your talk. Thanks.
Okay, so we got our first prefab guy on the podcast, and well, let me ask this: Are you brought in? I know you're a building envelope specialist.
Yeah.
Prominently. Are you brought in for a prefab project specifically, or not necessarily?
I wouldn't say specifically, but on occasion, yes. I mean, I typically work on our target projects, historically more on the more complex envelope systems, right? Curtain wall and, what have you. But since we don't have that many commercial buildings anymore, I mean, that the focus has shifted. So we're building a lot of data centers right now, which we've done historically. It's just the amount of data centers I think now has increased exponentially. Get involved in manufacturing facilities, processing facilities, and where we do try to prefabricate wall systems, and where we had historically precast wall panels, right, tilt-up wall panels, we now are actually manufacturing in-house. We have a company that actually does prefab exterior wall systems. So we offer a product that includes insulated metal panels on a cold form frame. So,
wow, and this is coming from TPR. We should give everybody context, and they'll see it. Won't threw it up on the screen, but that's interesting. So let's see, I'm bringing some of that in house. What drove that direction?
Well, I would say our clients are finding a direction because they're always looking for faster and better and cheaper, right? And while this product may not necessarily make the overall product cost cheaper, I mean, it is a little bit more price, a little bit more pricey than a precast panel, for example. It does get you to the installation process faster, so we're getting faster to the job site, and then also the installation process itself is a little bit faster when we install precast panels. So that in itself, right? I mean, the project go a little bit faster. They can install their data center hardware in the building faster, and they can run you faster, right? And that's a huge incentive for most of our clients. So I mean, there's some clients that are more price driven. I'm not gonna lie, but I think a lot of them are right now. They're interested in.
And what about on the commercial side? Just being national players, is this specific market driven, or just an evolution you're seeing across the board?
Well, commercial. I mean, what commercial? I mean, there's not much commercial construction really going on. Big scale commercial construction. We do have an interior division that does a lot of interior fit outs still in the commercial market. But as far as like what we've been doing before COVID, right, where we dealt with office buildings in some of the bigger cities, and with unit test curtain wall jobs, for example, I mean, that has significantly slowed down for us, at least. And I think probably my colleagues at other companies will say similar things, because it's just, nobody knows where it's going. Everybody's now interested in having flexible working conditions, right, and with hybrid approach. And so these type of buildings are just not are not out there anymore. So we're looking in the advanced tech market. We're also, our company does a lot of work in the higher end market and healthcare. We're just building a large hospital for Innova here in Springfield, not too far from here. And also lab buildings are still, if they're owner operated, they're still going fairly strong. So, and as a company, our approach, and for me personally as a building envelope expert, I'm always looking for prefabrication solution, just simply because it's a better product, it's faster, and it's just also increases our safety, which is a huge value for us as a company. Right, we want everybody to go home safe to their family, and this is just a product where there's less manpower required, and again, we're shortening the installation time and therefore increasing the safety on the job.
So when you're pursuing a job, owner, before maybe the pre-con stage or before seeing this brought on, will you use prefabricated systems as a competitive edge for those others?
Absolutely. We always try to bring that in as at least as an option, right? To show the owner that, their project schedule can be shortened by that. And then also talk about what I just mentioned, the upfield and benefits of prefabrication. I haven't mentioned the quality side of it, right? I mean, if you're in a controlled environment in a facility, that's much different than if you have to caulk somewhere on a job site, hanging on a chair and basically doing that in, weather that might not be ideal for those conditions. And so that is a huge plus, I think, that we have that in-house, and is something that we really try to focus on as a company.
And is it a tough pill for you to swallow if you know it's the right solution for a job, but the owner just doesn't want to buy in? Or is that an inevitable what I just said? Maybe it's not the right solution.
It could be a little bit of both, right? I mean, it's sometimes, it's sometimes difficult to figure out, well, is this really the right approach for the project, or are we better off stick building it? We also sometimes, I should mention that we do hybrid approaches, right? Where we basically, and what I mean by that is, when I talk about prefab in general, I talk about, a panel that's going to get hung onto the building, much like a unitized curtain wall panel. And you're basically, you're putting the panels on, you walk away, you're done, right? There's also an approach where we say we hang the backup panel, right? Meaning the cold-form framing, the sheathing, and the waterproofing already applied onto the building, make sure that the joints are waterproofed, and then, in that sense, actually are able to close in the building faster to get to the interior construction, and then worry about the finished product a bit later, right? So there's not the critical path is waterproofing the building, and the finished product is going on much later, and it gives us a little bit more breathing room in that sense. So.
Well, I'm excited to see some of the products out that you guys are bringing, especially in the data center work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right, so we got a sustainability expert now on the podcast. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'm responsible for sustainability like SAP, so I guess so.
Let's call you qualified. I like what we were talking about before, and I want to learn more about how YKK really kind of owns the whole process from vertical integration from shooting and sourcing your own bill. And I think in today's world, earlier in podcast, I was talking to Jason about the globalization of our industry and importing of foreign product, and there's good and there's bad. So there's trade-offs with every decision making like that ever. But the more you can control your destiny, I think, more confidence you can instill in the market, confidence you can instill in others. So before we kind of get into the specifics, what was that the primary driver to go in this direction over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It really is about controlling our own destiny, and the fact that we're able to sort of control all the inputs by being vertically integrated, right, from melting that ingot or scrap metal down, and then sort of mixing it with our special sauce, extruding it and then fabricating it into our finished products, gives us that control that you mentioned. And so that's not just control on quality and performance and specifications, but it translates, as we've realized, into sustainability credentials as well, right? We have the ability to source the input aluminum, whether that's from more responsibly sourced, lower energy intensive aluminum ingot, or whether that's increasing the amount of recycled input, either scrap that comes from our production itself, or whether that's upping the amount of like post-consumer or external scrap materials. It really gives us the ability to really pull all different levers, which is so important, right? I got a question today around just sort of the whole supply chain, tariff, logistical environment right now. And by having the ability to pull as many levers as possible, it gives us all the control across that supply chain, inclusive of sustainability.
And who do you think is the most important recipient of this information? Is it owner, design team, installers, glazers, contractors, fabricators, all the above?
I mean, all the above, but I would guess the most important audience would be sort of the architects, designer sort of phase when they're selecting sort of what products, what provider. I think that understanding of YKK AP, not only being a very strong partner who can provide you the design support and everything, but also is making responsible decisions from the ingredient stage, right? From putting it all together, sourcing our aluminum, having that control for the finished product, I think is a key message for the audience.
And the word sustainability, I think, has so many different definitions.
Yeah.
But you're asking, and I'm guessing you didn't start this industry, a year ago. You're not brand new. So has that definition evolved in time?
I do define. Yeah, I think it has actually. And of course, sustainability, the word sustainability encompasses sort of all that is environmental being responsible for the environment, etc. But I think YKKAP tends to look at it more comprehensively. It's how do we make sure that our business is self-sustaining? And if you think about it that way, of course, it includes making responsible decisions from a carbon footprint or environmental responsibility perspective, but it also then encompasses just decisions we're making, support we're providing, quality that we're providing, right? Final product and how it performs in the building for the long term. So as long as we can make sure that we are self-sustaining, I think we address that more specific sustainability definition, right? YKKAP has a philosophy that we point to all the time, and it's kind of like our own golden rule. We call it the cycle of goodness. No one prospers without rendering benefit to others. And that really lets you sort of think about the business from a real holistic perspective. How do we sustain that business in terms of our partnerships and our product and our quality and our environmental responsibility? We take that pretty seriously.
And it's a global organization, and the demands and requirements, let alone, I think, operating in this market in itself between the Southeast and seismic on the West Coast and hurricane impact here and your heating dominated climates up north. I would say partially is that the biggest challenge, understanding we have all these different factors and variables, and how do we make a pie chart and overlap the most, make the most people happy, understand that we can't be the solution for every building everywhere.
Right. Well, you mentioned global, right? So we are part of a global enterprise, and that means we have a huge amount of resources that back us up, right? Starting in Japan, where our group is headquartered, but very specifically here in North America. And as you know, and as your audience knows, architectural products and architecture is very much linked to very, region-specific standards and requirements. So, you can say we've got this big global enterprise behind us, but at the end of the day, we need to be very focused and relevant in North America for our North America clients and their needs regionally across the U.S., like you said, Southeast, California, Florida. So it's a bit of a dance, I guess. We really need to make sure that we are very responsive and relevant in the specific regions where we are providing services and product in the United States. And so always keeping sort of our finger on that pulse first and foremost.
And recognizing not only what to say yes to, but to say no to.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't say yes to everything. We try to, and we try to provide services. We've got a really robust team of application and design engineers that are in-house. We have large project teams, we call it project center, who can really devote a huge amount of consolidated cross-functional resources to projects and kind of understand how do we support, how do we maybe help you think as a client differently, how can we suggest some differences perhaps, but yeah, we might say this is not in our wheelhouse and we think you can do better somewhere else just based on what you have said or what your projects require.
And on a final note, has what's happened in the Middle East and some concern around availability, procurement of aluminum and billet itself, does this feel like it's like prime time, stage time to come forward and say this, not that this is what we were preparing for all along. Yeah, in this instance, this is a perfect example of why we wanted to take control of our supply chain.
I think you could say that, right? I think because we have more visibility and more control, I think that helps. At the end of the day, procurement of a raw material like aluminum is a forward-looking, time-consuming sort of process. So it's not like you can kind of shift on a dime and say, okay, right, changing another item off and this one. So, it's a big ship and it doesn't turn so quickly. I said earlier in the panel discussion I was involved in that I think, never thought I'd say this, right, but the experience having gone through COVID-19 has at least prepared us as an organization to be a lot more nimble and able to kind of turn and react and, sort of apply the right amount of resources to a problem to get it solved, or at least to get it moving and navigate better. I don't think that the Middle East is necessarily a huge source of stress. Perhaps, I think maybe more broadly, there's a lot of pressure on the supply chain around tariffs and sourcing decisions that have required us to take a renewed look, almost on a daily basis, but a renewed look at sort of how we source and where we source. And we have the benefit of having teams that are devoted to that and having a a broader global organization that can help us think through a lot of that. But a lot of the decisions we've made are decisions on sourcing specifically that are serving our customer, are serving a sustainability story, sourcing that aluminum for locations that are less carbon intensive for our purposes, more primarily from Canada right now, sourcing or dialing up the amount of recycled content. So we're really doing that as much as possible to try and sort of alleviate some of those pressures where we can. But it's not an immediate impact. And so we're sort of trying to navigate as best we can. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate it. This is fun.
All right, so we got Kevin joining us from NFRC. Thanks, Kevin, for coming on. Jordan, I thought it was important to have you as part of this conversation, just given here the commercial nature of the work and presentations and everything being described. But having NFRC representation and understanding what NFRC is, where NFRC is going on the commercial side, and we've had Steve Selpowitz on a bunch of times, so kind of gotten the history. But what would be your 30-second elevator pitch to help somebody understand how NFRC was developed as it relates to fenestration and what the purpose is behind it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. NFRC was essentially developed to provide apples-to-apples comparison for products. It was kind of the wild, wild west where you had a large size window and a small size window. People were trying to compare them. Said, hey, my window does better than yours. Well, it's only doing better because it's a bigger window. So NFRC started out trying to balance the playing field, making sure that when you're looking to select a product, you're basically comparing them equally. We kind of morphed over the years with our commercial programs where we're more in line with the project. We're trying to rate the project. So any of the products that are on the project itself, we're able to do alternate sizes to try to help the energy modelers and the mechanical engineer design people. So we're able to kind of better assist the market with providing the code results, as well as giving them additional information for additional design considerations.
So we'll talk it for an hour separately, but in this consolidated discussion, I'm trying to really break this down to simply what it is. So it's a rating tool to give an apples-to-apples comparison of a product, and that makes sense. I think that's pretty intuitive in the residential market. When you go to commercial, when you're dealing with custom sizes, conditions, and a lot of different makeups on the project, is it fair to say NFRC is a tool, but it can't necessarily be an accurate representation completely of exactly what's being built?
Yeah, so basically, NFRC is a good tool to provide. It gives you the window performance. It's not intended to give you the true, as-built condition. It's going to give you a piece of the puzzle to try to help you with the, if you're doing energy analysis, you're going to know your wall performance, you're going to know your window performance. Something that somebody can use to provide an input in order to kind of get you more, I guess, information on how the buildings are performing when it's wind section installed and built.
Do you think, given the nature of our industry, where it's going around thermal performance and understanding whole building performance from an energy modeling standpoint, has it become more challenging for people to take the performance route versus the prescriptive route? Or do you find teams are electing to take the prescriptive route because when they go down that whole building true performance, it opens up a whole new can of worms?
I think it depends on the project, honestly. Performance, I think, is you're going to see more performance just because systems are getting better. Prescriptive, you're limited to what they're prescribing. You know what you're going to get, but with performance, it gives you more flexibility, gives you more opportunity to select new glazing, select maybe a new product. But yeah, I think using performance fuels, you definitely see. I think we're going to see more of it, honestly. But no, that's what I'm feeling.
And so from a commercial perspective, I know NFRC has been focusing on rolling out a new custom compliance path. And with that, factoring in a lot of various taking the component modeling approach to be able to account for all these different components or shapes or configurations that otherwise weren't part of the program. Do you see more adoption from that on the commercial side?
I expect we will, yes. So with the introduction of kind of a two-path certification approach, able to more quickly certify custom projects where we could not certify those before. A lot of the old system, it was your standard stock product, where, again, we weren't able to fully encapsulate or cover all of those unique situations. Still today, we're not able to include everything just because there's limited simulation procedures on how do you adequately or accurately characterize some of the conditions. You get 3 interactions that some of the tools and software just doesn't handle at this point. So like as the tools improve, I think we'll be able to obviously include more, but we also need the methodologies on, we need to standardize it, because somebody that's doing the modeling could do it one way, it could be accurate, but we don't know how everybody's doing it in the industry. So if we can standardize a procedure to engage or get more components within building, that'd be awesome.
Are there tools out there that can enable a team to better understand all those 3D conditions with all the variables and inputs? And I know there's certain components that are excluded when doing your standard NFRC compliance modeling, but beyond that, do you see the technology and the software improving in the industry for people to take the next step and truly understand as-built performance?
That's a hard question. There is software tools or 3D tools out there to help handle those situations. Where the barriers in a lot of those is they require physical testing. So you need to have a baseline validation input into these tools. So it's not a straightforward, I can do a simulation, quick analysis. There's still a lot of additional inputs or data that's required. So it's doable, but it's still not a simple, straightforward process.
And yeah, I mean, I would imagine the physical testing is a hindrance to from a cost standpoint, from a time standpoint, and so it can. Do you hope or wish to see more resources shared, or for somehow a way to find all of this information compiled so that we can make all informed? I think what bothers me personally the most is that so much of this information is like hidden in the trouble knowledge kind of nature, but it's all consolidated hidden information that maybe select manufacturers or select modelers have readily available, but it's not like our industry really encourages those to share all those lessons learned.
I think that's accurate. You said each, I don't want to say entity or each company, they have their own niche processes that they do it that way for years. Oftentimes they don't want to share it because they don't want have their people to put all that time and resources and money into it. Why would they? They're not incentivized to share. Exactly.
And I feel like maybe there are some agencies or bodies that could spend more time on the R&D side, and if we could find a way to capture some of those dollars to put towards information that can be shared, I would only imagine it would better everybody.
Absolutely.
So Kevin, thanks for coming on, and looking forward to sharing more on what NFRC is doing in the commercial market.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Brett, first timer, welcome to the podcast here in DC.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So I wanted to talk to you. We always go back and forth on these concepts of curtain wall and window wall, given people love to bucket these as a product, and a lot of times it really is a concept or means and methods of pre-assembling a wall panel and then installing it on a building. I think Matt Bronsko, give him a shout out, loves this whole curtain wall. It doesn't have to be all glass, and it is a means and methods of drying in the building. So maybe we can focus to start a little bit on window wall, because that is something that might be near and dear to your heart here locally.
Absolutely. That's one of the challenges, and that word means different things to different people. Developers like to use that word because it encompasses an application with a certain economy to it. Manufacturers like it because it means a specific application that they may be tailoring their product to. So the challenge is it's not any one specific product, it's an application. And so the biggest challenge is it a window product that's being installed in a slab-to-slab configuration, and there's great economy to that, not having as much cold form metal framing, backup wall construction to deal with. But you're really pushing the window technology pretty far to go slab to slab, take building movement and other things. But then it can also be a curtain wall product that is, traditionally curtain wall products are very robust because they have to do a lot of things. We might be spanning glass slabs and covering an entire building with it, so you've got a lot of requirements there. But if you're smart about it, you can economize that system as a manufacturer and take off, strip away all the belts and suspenders that makes that super robust for I can install it on office spans and large spans, or now we're thinking about a window walls primarily thought of in the residential space. So we're thinking about residential spans and slab to slab as opposed to spanning by the slab. Now you can, smaller extrusions, not as deep of a section, different attachment methods, yet you're gaining some of the really nice characteristics of the curtain wall system with water management, acoustics, unitization, maybe, etc. So
I have about 17 questions. It's what you just said, but a few immediate takeaways to move next. We can never bucket all of these into a single application, whatever, but as a blanket statement till we maybe say curtain wall best for office, window wall best for multifamily application?
I would hesitate. In general, I think economics of it probably play out that way. The window products are, we're very lucky to live in a time where sort of the advancements of the unitized curtain wall system have flowed down into the window market space. So we're getting some really nice performance products, still at a relatively low cost point. Curtain wall, it's a little harder to, not maybe the best term, but dumb down the system a little bit, strip off the extra bells and whistles to get it down to that system. But there are products, curtain wall products, that work well in a window wall application fairly efficiently. And if you want to do things like structural glazing on, 2 or 4 sides of the assembly, it's a little easier to do that with a curtain wall system, a base chassis that's curtain wall, than it is with a window product. Not that it can't be done. Now you're looking at things that are highly proprietary, where you're going to have trouble finding a compatible or a comparable system from another manufacturer.
From a price standpoint, if you have to explain this to an owner, forget the subcontractor, the installers and manufacturers that actually know how it comes together, and do it to an owner that's just seeing it as a product, this and this. Why is curtain wall perceived to be more expensive than window wall? In not just the material itself, the whole package.
I think you have to look at the sophistication of the manufacturer, the robustness of the assembly, not just the materials, but sort of the construction process. And, curtain wall manufacturers often are doing very challenging projects. And so that's somewhat baked into the process of how you design it, how you do the analysis, how the fabrication plant is set up. It might be different from a window manufacturer. Not that there's anything wrong with a window manufacturer doing a window wall product in a high-end application, but I think it's just where they're coming from, and to sort of drag a little bit that with them into this space where both of these systems sort of meet.
Yeah, I know a few high-end window wall designers that might get a little upset.
It is, and you know what? That's the thing, is the generalizations are tough in this space. It's very product specific, and while there may be overarching trends, there are many manufacturers that have very smartly adapted their products for certain applications. But there are trends, and we have to be cognizant of that. When we don't yet have a particular product picked out, we have to sort of think about that. But that sort of raises the importance of getting to a product early and thinking about the viability, adaptability of that product to a specific application, a specific design. And that is important, because in this window wall space, everybody's got their own solution, their own mousetrap, and they're different and not interchangeable necessarily without, some effort in incorporating them into a design.
How do you think about performance generally as it relates to the two? Do you prefer the compartmentalization component or aspect of a window wall? Or, I think an argument can be as it relates to air, water infiltration, thermal performance. I think some people like that aspect where you can kind of pinpoint a leak or a failure point. At the same time, it requires way more field labor as it relates to receptor perimeters, going back out on a swing stage to install your slab edge covers. So another trade-off, obviously, you can't bucket that in its entirety, but kind of immediate gut reaction performance standpoint, curtain wall or window wall.
I would say that I like the higher end performance where things are compartmentalized. You have individual, units that are fabricated in a shop and, high quality control brought out to the site. I like that a lot, but it's not always just because I like the performance of one. That is one of many, many, many competing factors. And ultimately, my goal or project is not to be the person making decisions. I'm trying to educate, make sure that everybody's ideas, everybody's priorities are heard, and that the teams that are making these decisions together are doing so, eyes wide open with all the things on the table, so that if I want that thing that's going to perform a little bit better, it's going to come at the expense of something else that someone at the table may be very interested in. And so you've got to be able to put those things up early so that you're not making big movements later on in the project where, oh gee, I can't do this, or I need to use this other product. Now I've sacrificed a whole bunch of other things that might be pretty important to some of the stakeholders on the project.
Now, how has your experience been internally at SGH? You're communicating some of these priorities. the lens of viewing a project team and projects specifically to the application and the owner, just given there's so many politics and influences and driving variables in the respective markets that, you can't just put 5 SGHers at this table and speak the same language to all 5 of them.
That's exactly right. I think partially it's the process. I think the process can be translate of thinking about what are all the conditions, how do we communicate things, how do we interact as a team. That translates everywhere. And that's the thing that we're trying to teach across the company in different offices is the process, being sensitive to different stakeholders and their ideas, thinking about prioritizing performance, constructability, durability, implied maintenance demand, all of the things that we have to think about so that we can get an early gauge about what are the key things for this project and with this group. That doesn't care where the geography is. Then you start thinking about, all right, once you've gotten to that point, you can say, all right, what are the products in this marketplace that maybe the installers are familiar with? And that is important. We don't, it's not that you can't take a product into a new market space, but you have to have an installer that is familiar enough, and you might have to spend a little upfront investment to make that go smoothly. And so we do want to play to sort of market sensitivities about what products are available. If you're in the Northeast, there's a lot more curtain wall than the further south you go, where it may be more window wall that's made out of window products per se, right? And same East Coast, West Coast, where we have seismic requirements and things like that may drive other decisions. So those things are, a decision point in the process that can be adaptable regardless of your geography. And then you get to the last one that you mentioned, which is who are the players? The architect might have preferences. If there's a contractor involved, a CM involved early to provide input, they may have preferences. And that's based on experience. It's based on their own personal experience, and that can't be discounted. It's important. And the owner, of course, is going to have sensitivities, both success stories or maybe places where project teams stub their toe and they don't want to repeat it. So they're just, that is verboten. It's off limits. We're not going there. So we have to take that into account. And that's why I think this whole process is important to get done as early as possible. Obviously, in new design projects, if you can be involved early on when the initial renderings of a project are developed. Once you have a rendering, people have it stuck in their mind what that project's going to be. And that drives a lot of decisions. And so you want to be thinking about, is this compatible with where we're going to end up, pretty early in the process. So,
Brad, thanks for coming on. Absolutely. Glad to. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
As co-chair, what brought you down to DC in this event?
So we've been thinking about volunteering with the event for several years now. We've often attended. It's a very interesting conference focused on kind of the technical aspects of architecture that often get overlooked. So much art professionally focuses on all the design components, which are very important, but just as equally important is how it all goes together. So when the opportunity came to co-chair this, we all agreed that would be a great opportunity for us.
And do you think there, as a firm, is there equal emphasis on the design aspect of things as design architect, as well as the construction side, following the design through construction administration?
There is. We're definitely a full service firm, and realizing that having the people involved with the early design, making the early decisions with the owner, taking it all the way through, and actually understanding why stuff happens in construction is so important. Because there's nothing worse than sitting in a construction meeting and the contractor's asking you, well, why did you do it this way? And everyone just kind of stares at each other. Well, we don't know. No, we do know, because we actually were sitting in those meetings where we had conversations with the owner about, well, this is why we're going to do it that way. And so that kind of smoothes the whole process.
And to that extent, how in the weeds really can be about detailing every little, horizontal and vertical line, especially in your DD set when it goes out to bid, unless you have that support from the supplier or subcontractor.
So I find it interesting because if you look back at sets from, the 40s, the 50s, you could build a giant skyscraper from, 25 sets of drawings, and people seem to have no problem with it. Nowadays, we do a set that has, 250 drawings, and we still have people asking us, well, how do we put this together? So it's like, where do you actually find where that median is of how much to draw, how much to detail, how much should you leave to the expertise of the subcontractor, the people who are actually in the field drawing it? We have a certain liability and a certain responsibility to detail our, what we call design intent. But do we need to draw every little piece in there, or is that enough? And I think the whole industry is still trying to find that balance.
And do you think the architecture community is incentivized to work with vendors, manufacturers, and subcontractors to help bridge that gap?
I think it's happening more and more. And when I first started in this industry, it almost never happened. Everything was designed to build. You only talk to vendors when you basically needed information from them. And it's gone completely different. I mean, 90% of our work is with CMs at risk now. We started to do more design build. A lot of times we're looking at doing design assist and actually bringing vendors in early, because frankly, they know their products. They know what they're doing on site and how to actually implement the ideas that we have. It's our job to then go and pull it all together with the other building systems. We don't necessarily need to detail every screw of a curtain wall, for example. Like, let them do that. That's what they're the experts of.
Do you think a lot of that information is readily available online, or do you need to really tap into the manufacturing network?
I think you can get the basic stuff online, but how many of your projects really just repeat the same thing over and over? Like, you can go online and get like the basic details of things, but you're not going to get what you specifically need for your project. We don't want every building to look the same. A lot of details are not going to be the same. We need someone who's actually willing to work with us and figure out how to make that design a reality.
And everything beyond the envelope, because really people can't see beyond the envelope. That's what they look at. That's the aesthetic implication of it. But then how the insulation ties back to the structure, how the cladding attachment clips might be mitigated through thermal breaks or to mitigate thermal bridging, like all these things behind the decorative element that actually matter when it comes to durability and the longevity of the skin. Do you think enough emphasis is focused on that? Also, on the unsexy side of the business?
I mean, that's the reason we get sued most of the time, frankly. The number one cause of lawsuits for architects is always water infiltration, it seems. So if we're not paying attention to everything that's happening beyond just, what the public can see, like, that's where the problems go wrong. How many times have we gone back to an old building and, start pulling off the facade and you see how everything inside is basically degraded to a point where it's failing, and then we got occupants complaining that they have issues in there. So if we don't actually pay attention to how that's all put together, then we have serious problems.
And is it a really unique owner that cares about adding a third line of sealant or an extra inch of insulation or making sure that you maintain that air barrier continuity versus we're going to have this custom color or we're going to have a half inch more depth to get that shadowing effect, something that can resonate with them?
So it's interesting because we never work with one owner. There's different, just like you're not working with one architect, you're working with a team of architects, we're working with a team of owners. We're going to get the people who care about like what the exterior facade looks like, as they should. And we have people that care about how their classroom is set up or how their office is set up. And then we have the facilities folks who actually have to maintain the building. And they're the ones that want to see how everything is put together, what they have to do to actually go back in and fix later. Like, they're the ones that are going to be pulling for all those technical details in there. And a lot of times, most of our owners will defer to them on those details. Just like the facilities folks are not necessarily going to be the ones picking paint colors. So sometimes so.
Mo, if you're talking to. Well, Greg, thanks for coming on. I hope this conference has been helpful and that we'd see you at more of them in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.